this is Mr. Shaw, and I just wanted to make a short video, and hopefully this video will help you prepare for the Unit 3 test, which is going to be opened today. What can we recall about Unit 3? Well, it was in 4 sections: 3.1 on the medieval world, 3.2 on the Renaissance, 3.3 on the evolution of notation, and 3.4 on 3 music parameters. Now, I'm not going to go over 3.4 because I already made a video about that, and hopefully you'll get a few laughs out of that about me trying to play Mario Brothers and failing epically at it. So, something to look forward to. Let's look at 3.1 though. The medieval period, it's dominated by the Catholic Church. It is dominated by religion. After the fall of the Roman Empire, a new empire forms, and that is the Church. And their music, that's what survives. Their culture, that's what survives. So, sacred music, that's what we look at when we look at the medieval period, because we have scarce examples of secular music, non-religious. What we find is, in the early part of the Middle Ages, there is a pope named Gregory, and he's scared that the music that they sing in the masses, in the services, is going to be lost forever at some point because of the fact it's not written down. And he is determined to find a way to write down the Mass ordinaries, the Kyrie, the Gloria, the Credo, the Sanctus Benedictus and the Agnus Dei. And he finds a way. He comes up with Gregorian Chant, which is, it's just one line. And it reflects the music not by actual note like we know it is, La, that could be a C, La, that could be a G, La, that's another C. It might not be that way. His way was to show relative pitch, okay, and I'll talk about that a little bit more in a second. But basically what we have here is we have a monophonic chant. Monophonic, mono, one, okay, so it's one line. And that will later on add a second line, and that second line will form organum. All right, organum is a 2-part chant. The lower part being the original Gregorian chant, and it can be modified by speed at any time. And the top line, which is usually faster, okay, that is the top line of the organum. So we have 2 different melodies fighting it out at the same time. What we have there, we don't have monophonic anymore because monophonic means 1. We have polyphonic, which means 2 or more melodies being played at the same time. In the other aspect of music, right, the non-religious, the secular music, what we find is, like I said, very scarce examples. But we do have one from the 1300s that we listened to in class called Summer is a Coming. Summer is a Coming, now we sing cuckoo. Remember? It was all about the harvest and different things that happen in the springtime, reflecting the seasons, the agrarian culture that the Middle Ages had, okay? Let's go on to the 1400s. And in the 1400s, we start to transition into the Renaissance. And the Renaissance is a French word meaning rebirth. So what are we rebirthing in this? Well, we're not rebirthing the ideas of the Middle Ages. No, we are unearthing and reinstating ideas that were made in the ancient world, the ancient Greeks, the ancient Romans, their ideals, Plato's Republic, Aristotle, the idea that, hey, music is important to study for music's sake. That's all coming back. Yeah, this idea of word painting. And it was stressed in Gregorian chant a little bit, where, the natural rhythms of the words helped to create the idea of, what was being said and how it was sing it. But word painting goes even further in the fact that it reflects what is being said. So maybe they're saying, the mountains will lay low and every valley will rise, reverse effect, right? It might be, the mountains will lower and the valley will rise. Just making up words, but that's an example. You can see mountains being lowered, right? Concrete, right? And then valleys being lifted. We talked about a few composers. We talked about Orlando de Lassus, who changed his name in every place he was at to reflect the culture of whichever part of Europe he was in, and his name reflected the language. You know, in Italian it had a dilasis. You know, in the Belgium he had dilasis. You know, it all depends on where he's at. His student Gabriele, he was responsible for the polychoral technique, which we talked about was multiple choirs singing at each other, singing different themes. Very, very polyphonic, and very much a bizarre kind of yelling conversation is almost what you could think of it as. And in a Chelsea's, is his major work that we look at. It's a beautiful piece. We look to England, right? We look to England, and England is starting to get some really good composers. They have Thomas Tallis and William Byrd. And these two guys, beyond being these great composers that we remember today, they are also the leaders in music publications in England. They have the printing press, right? The printing press was developed during the early Renaissance, and that led to music publications and music being able to go to many people. And we talked about how, you know, they wrote these really remarkably serious religious works for both the Anglican Church of England and the Catholic Church. You know, they wrote for the two competing religions in England, and very, you know, beautiful and serious works, but they didn't sell. Remember? They didn't sell like all the little folk songs and all the little ditties, right? We talked about this in class, where it's like, you know, if Lady Gaga tomorrow released an album of classical music, it would not do nearly as well as her music of, you know, Born This Way and Poker Face and all the other ones, Paparazzi, etc., etc. You know, it just wouldn't do it because it's not catchy. It's not catchy like the pop songs are, the folk songs were back in the day. With the Reformation, we have several new forms of music forming in those new Protestant sects. And the major one is the chorale. And the chorale will evolve into our hymns, where they have one melody for a verse, and they keep repeating the verse over and over again. All right? And some of the other denominations will have the formation of the Psalters, which used text from the book of Psalms, and they created like a little ditty out of that. And then anthems, which are very difficult works. William Byrd, Thomas Tallis, very, very difficult anthems that they wrote, but they were very intricate, very exciting to sing, and reflected the message appropriately. 3.3, we looked at notation. So we have, starting with rote notation. We don't have any form of notation whatsoever. After rote notation's been around for, well, obviously it's been around for a long time. You sing it to somebody else, but at the same time you can lose the message, you can lose the song at any given time. So that's what Pope Gregory, when he formed Gregorian Chant, was very, very nervous about. He was terrified that they could lose this music. And because of his efforts in forming what we now know as pneumatic notation, we didn't have notes like we know them today. They were called neumes, and they reflected relative pitch, the relationships between the notes, the intervals. Ya-da-dum, ah-da-da-dum, you know, something like that. Later on, in the later Middle Ages, we have a guy named Guido, and he was nervous about some things. You know, we had Gregorian Chant, we had etc., but we had no idea of the actual pitch and how to actually sing it. And he noticed that the monks that were at his monastery and the other priests that he interacted with and sisters, nuns, etc., were having trouble finding the note. And he developed an idea called the Guidonian hand, all right? And the Guidonian hand is our first sight singing tool. Like today we have do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. We actually started with those first 6 notes. So he forms ut, re, mi, fa, sol, la, so, fa, mi, re, ut. Another thing we should talk about with notation and with music in general is the idea of psalmodies, okay? And different types of singing that we can have towards each other. And this can be secular or sacred, it doesn't matter, it can be anywhere. But there are 3 major ones that I just want to make you aware of. The first one is direct psalmody. And the example of that would be when everybody is singing together. The best example I can give you is when everybody starts singing the national anthem together at a football game because Christina Aguilera couldn't remember the lyrics. I'm still upset with that. I think that's why the Steelers lost that Super Bowl. Anyway, now I got myself completely off track. Another example are hymns in a church. You sing an opening hymn, right? Everybody sings together. They sing one part, maybe a couple of parts, but they're all at the same time. So they're all singing together. The next one we have is the responsorial psalmody. And it's a very common practice in Catholic religion. Basically what it is you get to sing a chorus. Everybody gets to sing a chorus, and then the soloist sings the verses. The final one that we have is antiphonal psalmody. And that's kind of like Gabriele's polychoral technique, where you have multiple choirs and they're in a conversation with each other, and it's like, hey you, how you doing? I don't know, how you doing? Da 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 da, going back and forth. It could be in any style of music: jazz, classical, pop, rock and roll. All right. The easiest example that we have that we can think of is a duet. So maybe you've heard of, Annie Get Your Gun, right? There's a famous song at the end. You might not know the musical, but you know the song. Anything you can do, I can do better. Sooner or later, I'm better than you. Then the other person sings, no you can't, yes I can, no you can't, yes I can. Going back and forth. That's antiphonal psalmody, all right? They're going back and forth, having a conversation with each other to music, all right? Final section, as we said, is on the 3 music parameters of tempo, dynamics, and form. If you have questions about that, check out the video that will be right above this one in the Class Connect Sessions tab. You will see this one, and then above it, it will say 3 types of music parameters. Okay? So, we're just taking a look at the Unit 3 criteria, and hopefully you're going to be ready for the test. I know you will be, and you're excited to learn about the Baroque period. Remember the key phrase: if it ain't Baroque, don't fix it. Okay? So hey, have a great day. Do well on your test. If you need help, let me know. Okay? Because I don't know if you need help unless you say something. Okay? Take it easy. Have a great day.